Happy to be back with you for our third installment of driving collections and driving down receivables for suppliers and distributors. And this installment is eliminating overdue invoices with data. My name is Martin Roth. I am the Chief Revenue Officer here at Levelset. I've been here for about 8 years. I've worked with thousands of contractors, suppliers, equipment rental companies, some very, very big companies, and many very small companies. And so we've helped companies of all sizes. We've seen a lot of what to do and what not to do. Today, specifically, what we're going to talk about is a step-by-step guide for reviewing your AR and specifically reviewing past due invoices. Hopefully help you think a little differently about your aging receivables and think of some things that you can leave this webinar today and go put into action, go into your ERP, run your aging and think about it a little differently, and hopefully go get some cash into the business, which I'm sure you need. We all need a little more cash in our business, especially right now. The second thing we're going to talk about is how to use data to efficiently collect on the invoices. And then finally, we're going to talk about what to do when the lien deadline has expired. So let's jump right in. I mentioned the National Construction Payment Report at the beginning. Again, you can find it at levelset.com/survey to contribute to the report. You can also download the report. We will send this slide deck out to everybody who registered for this webinar. So you'll have access to the spring version of that construction payment report. We do another one in the fall that we're gearing up for here. But a little bit of insight from this most recent report. We had over 500 respondents, which is definitely a statistically significant sample size of construction companies and suppliers. And some of the takeaways from this report: 80% of contractors spend a substantial amount of time chasing down payments. So whether you're a subcontractor or you're a supplier or distributor who's delivering materials or renting equipment to contractors, it's important for you to understand how quickly your customers are getting paid, or what your peers are doing in the market. 84% of contractors experience delays on some or all projects. That one's probably pretty obvious. Construction is, building things is hard. Building things on time and under budget is hard, and delays affect everybody or almost everybody in the business. But the one key takeaway is that 54% of contractors, over half, say that payment delays are caused by slow payment above them on the project. So whether it's you or your customer, usually the reason they're not getting paid is above them on the project. The owner, the general contractor, someone above them is withholding payment. Sometimes it's related to a payment application. Sometimes it's related to not having the right lien waivers provided. Could be a workmanship dispute. Could be any number of things. But the payment, and we went through this 2 sessions ago, which is that the payment in most cases has little to do with what the direct relationship is with your customer. In many cases, not always, but in many cases, it has to do with that job. We're going to talk about that as it relates to invoices and collecting. Bring it back up a level. Let's talk about the problem and why it's so difficult to get paid on a construction project. I'm going to go through this very briefly because we have gone through it twice now in the past 2 webinars. When you think about construction projects, each job is a thumbprint. You can think about each job being unique in that the same combination of elements of participants, the same owner, contractor, subcontractor, suppliers are never going to come together in exactly the same way on another project. Or if they do, it's very, very, very rare. Every job is a thumbprint, and coordinating across that job is a challenge because you have different levels of sophistication, different levels of process. We all know that when you're working with a larger organization, you can normally expect that it's going to take longer to get paid because they have better payment terms, because they have lower credit risk. Companies that have higher credit risk, you have COD terms, or there's all types of different ways that companies interact with each other. And that's why it's important to understand the challenge that each project presents because of how unique each project is. So if each project is a fingerprint, why does slow payment happen? Usually, if you're on the bottom of the project, as in you're a distributor or a supplier or a subcontractor, payment problems at the bottom of the project usually start at the top of the project. Going back to the construction payment report, 54% of contractors say that slow payment happens because of slow payment above them on the job. And the thing about construction projects is that project accounting is what it is. Money tends to stay within the job, and it kind of has this trickle effect going from the lender to the owner to the general contractor and on down the payment chain, as we like to say. So payment problems at the bottom, they start higher up on the project, right? How do contractors prioritize who gets paid first? This is a really key takeaway that's important to understand. Owners want the job done on time and under budget. They hire GC, general contractors, who need to keep the property or the project, the job, free and clear of liens to make sure that everybody gets paid, but also that they don't overpay or double pay for work. Subcontractors need cash flow to finish the job. And in so many cases, suppliers are left holding the debt for too long, right? How do contractors prioritize who gets paid first? Usually the company that's protecting their lien rights, or the company that is most visible on the project, is going to get paid first. An owner does not want to lien on the project. An owner wants to make sure that the subs and suppliers are paid for their work or for their materials. So when the sub and the supplier make themselves known on the project, that owner is going to make sure that that sub or supplier is getting paid because they need the lien waiver for the amount that that sub or supplier is owed, right? So it's a little bit of a quid pro quo for owners who want to make sure they know who everybody is on the construction project so they don't have any liens, right? I pulled out a specific segment of the construction payment report. It's really interesting because it talks about why contractors don't protect their payments. Even though we know lien rights are part of doing business, lien rights are the prudent thing, it's a best practice. We know that owners and general contractors want lien waivers on their projects, but so many subs and suppliers are afraid. And this is the takeaway right here, this section. Contractors are afraid to demand payment. While some said that the lien claim process is complicated or expensive, the majority said they were afraid to lose a customer. 56% said they were afraid to lose a customer if they were to protect their lien rights. This is a scientific fact. 100% of people do not like liens. Nobody walks onto the job and says, I can't wait to lien this job. Everybody starts the job out with the best of intentions, wanting good partners, wanting repeat business. Nobody wants a lien. So if nobody wants a lien, but you have this device, this lien right, this instrument that you can use to make sure that you get paid on time and get paid fairly, and that the owner is definitely conscious of because they're requesting lien waivers, it's really important that you understand how to use lien rights and that you use them when they are appropriate. Not on every single project, because you may decide for relationship reasons or what have you that you don't want to protect lien rights, but at least you can make a conscious decision about it as opposed to just ignoring it and hoping that you get paid, right? So let's get into using data to collect on invoices. This is a step-by-step guide for reviewing your invoices and taking action on those invoices. So you can take a screenshot, copy and paste. We'll send this out in an email after this webinar, but this is your checklist. And the first two are going to be pretty common. This is like 101 collections. Start with the largest outstanding amounts. And the trick on this is you want to calculate what percentage of that outstanding account, what percentage is over 60 days. In construction, this is really important. If you're supplying lumber, for example, and you have a customer who's got $1 million, and I'm just going to use a round number, $1 million outstanding, and $100,000 of that outstanding amount across their whole account is over 60 days, but the other $900,000 is under 60 days, well, you're going to treat that differently than the opposite, where somebody has $900,000 outstanding over 60 days and only $100,000 within 60 days. That's obviously more risk. Now, I know you would say, hey, Martin, like, of course that's true. Well, let's put it on the table for all of the ways to evaluate the data for your aging, as opposed to just looking at the amounts. It's important to click closer and look at the actual accounts and what the risk profile is. Start from the oldest debt and go to the most recent. This is a simple one, which is the most recent debt, give them a little bit of time to pay. The oldest stuff, focus on what's oldest and make a determination how likely you are to collect that debt, especially if it's getting out there 180 days, 200 days. If it's a significant amount and it's aging that long, then you really need to ask what's going on with that customer relationship. Is that a legitimate customer relationship? This is a best practice. The number 3 is a best practice that we learned from one of our customers. They do a really good job of sizing up all of their customers. And what they do is they grade their customers by risk, A, B, and C, A being the least risky and C being the most risky. And they create a plan for the B and C customers. And so as it relates to lien rights, the B and C customers are the ones that they absolutely are going to protect their lien rights on. And the C customers, they treat a little bit differently than the B customers. But going through that exercise and establishing your risk profile for each of your customers is definitely a best practice. And that's really good data for your team to use to guide their interactions. Number 4, for everything over 30 days past due. So if you're given net 30 terms and it ages another 30 days, send a payment reminder. This is a really simple thing. If you're not automatically sending payment reminders based on a trigger, it can be polite, it can be friendly, just a reminder to get to the top of the inbox. Because in many cases, the reason an invoice doesn't get paid is because people simply just don't know about it. It falls to the bottom of their list. They're not paying attention to it. And they're not paying attention to your invoices as much as you're paying attention to your invoices. But you got to get comfortable with talking about it. And you're in business to make money. They got to make money too. They have to invoice their customers. It's okay to send payment reminders. And you want to be careful about it. You don't send it 5 days after you send the invoice, obviously. But you want to pay attention to those payment reminders and send them based on some trigger. We recommend 30 days past the due date. Number 5, look at the project behind the invoices. Review the contractors on the project, not just your customer. Remember, slow payment above is usually what causes slow payment. Look at who else is on the project. Look at that general contractor. Look at that owner. Is there potentially risk on the project, especially if it's a significant sized invoice? And then the last 2, for everything that's got a, for everything that has a lien deadline coming up within 20 days, send a notice of intent to lien. In many states, this is not a required document. In some states, it is a required document to protect lien rights. But in every state, it is an absolutely effective document. A notice of intent to lien will get the attention of everybody on the project, especially your customer. And in many cases, it does lead to getting paid on that job. And this is obviously for stuff that's coming up on a lien deadline. You don't want to be haphazard in sending out a notice of intent to lien. It's kind of a shot across the bow with the customer. And so you want to be deliberate in how you communicate with that document. And then finally, if you haven't collected by 85 days past the date that you last furnished labor and materials, you want to start thinking about filing the lien. Make sure you understand when the lien deadline is coming up. Hopefully you're using a system like Levelset to keep track of your lien deadlines so you don't have to keep track of them yourself. But nevertheless, once you start bumping up against 90 days, that's when it's time to start thinking about whether or not you need to file a lien. And it may be that you decide that you don't want to file a lien, and that's totally okay. But again, make sure you're making a conscious decision about it and not foregoing your lien rights just because you didn't pay attention to it or because you forgot that there was a lien deadline coming up. So this is a great checklist, something that you can look through. There's at least my bet is that there's at least 1 or 2 ideas in here that you can take back and apply to your AR and think a little bit differently about how to collect. And we'll jump into some of these specifically. So the fourth one is for everything that's over 30 days past due, send a payment reminder. Most projects, a simple reminder is enough to fast track your invoice. I took a screenshot of our standard payment reminder that we use within Levelset. We have a number of customers that automatically send these payment reminders out, and it's been a game changer for so many of them in just being able to keep more cash into their business. And it's pretty benign. It says, it's got your logo at the top, but you can type this up in Microsoft Word if you don't have a template. We even have a template online. Well, I'll make sure we send that in the follow-up email after the webinar. But But obviously, how do they get in touch with you? Make sure that they know where to pay the invoice or where to send the check, who it's going to, the subject, simple payment reminder for a specific invoice, a short message, a short reference to the project, thanking them for their business, and then you move forward with it. And this is something that, again, a lot of our customers use to accelerate payments and lower DSO and just to keep more cash in the business. Another one I want to key in on is for everything within 20 days of a lien deadline, send a notice of intent to lien. This is a really good graphic. I did mention, I sent you all an email this morning that said, if you attend, I'm going to send you our notice of intent to lien cheat sheet. This is an image from that cheat sheet, which is just an idea of how to think about using notices of intent to lien. The best way to think about it is that you start the project, you finish the project, you send your invoice, or maybe you're in the middle of the project, you send an invoice. After some period, that's going to be up to you. We say wait until 20 days, within like 20 days until the lien deadline. It could be before that. It's going to be whatever you're comfortable with. But after that period, you send the notice of intent to lien. That's when it's most effective, is leading up to that lien deadline. NOIs are still useful after the lien deadline, but they're most effective as the lien deadline approaches. Remember that and put that tool in your tool chest for how you can get paid on aging receivables. When you think about using data to collect on invoices, the first thing that I always recommend is start with the project in mind. When you look at the project, you look at it at an account and you look at those sub accounts or the project accounts or however you organize it. If you're not organizing your AR with respect to sub accounts or project accounts, then you're missing an opportunity to really understand what the risk is for a specific debt. But you start by reviewing the project in mind. Who else is on that project? How will your payment be influenced on that project? Is there something that's affecting payment on that project, like a natural disaster, or for national companies, that stuff matters. If you have a hurricane in Florida and that's jeopardizing the project, well, you can start to see that portion of your receivables may be impacted. It's important to have that good context. I mentioned this earlier. Grade your customers by risk. I like the stoplight methodology, which is that your riskiest customers are like a red light. Your somewhat risky customers are like a yellow light, and your best customers are a green light. Strong relationships rarely cause payment issues. So it's important that you understand where your weak relationships are and you create a plan for how to de-risk those relationships. It does not mean that you can't do business with people that you don't have a relationship with or that you don't trust. But when you enter a new relationship with a customer, you want to make sure that you have a plan for how you're going to how you're going to collect debt, how you're going to secure your lien rights, so that you aren't left holding the hot potato in the game of hot potato, right? So go through all of your customers, and it may take time. It may take a couple of months for you to get through all your customers, especially if you're a supplier and you have tens of thousands of customers. I totally understand. It's easy for me to say, go through all your customers and grade them, but this is a best practice. The companies that understand the risk profile for each of their customers in a very simple framework are usually the customers of ours who have the best receivables health and the best DSO. So as a best practice, grade your customers by risk, create a plan for the B and C customers. The other thing that you can do, we have tools like levelset.com/contractors. It's free. You can go on there and look at any contractor, GC, subcontractor, and see what their payment profile is. You can see whether liens have been filed. You can answer questions like, does the contractor have good payment history? What's the retainage that's usually on this contractor's project? I want to take a moment. Even if you, like a supplier or distributor, you don't have retainage, retainage can still affect your payment, especially if that retainage is 10% or even 15%. Sometimes we see that does have an impact on receivables for lower tier participants on a project. And then, most importantly, are there any liens filed on this project? There's a direct correlation with a lien on the project that you're supplying material to and slow payment on that project. So you want to make sure that you're aware when there are issues with payment. That's good data that helps you identify how you can go collect on those invoices. And then what to do when a lien deadline has expired. This is really important because you may go look at your receivables after this call, you can go run your aging and look at everything that's over 90 days. And then you cross-reference that with the state that the project is in, and you find out, oh no, the lien deadline is expired. Not all is lost. You can still use that notice of intent to lien to pull that invoice to the top. The company still owes the money, right? So if you're past the lien deadline, it's not a foregone conclusion that there is no lien right, but it is important to at least communicate the non-payment, because in many cases, that's enough to shake out payment from that project and make sure that you collect on that aging debt. So even if you have a missed deadline, we have a really good article on this on our blog about what to do when you miss a lien deadline. But what we've seen is that notice of intent to lien document is very effective at helping collect after the lien deadline has passed and you didn't file the lien. So keep that in mind. Again, keep that notice of intent to lien in your tool chest. It's a really, really powerful tool to help you get paid faster. I'm going to send out the notice of intent to lien cheat sheet. In here, it's going to talk about what is a notice of intent to lien. It's going to talk about why should you send it, when should you send it, all the things that you need to know. It even goes into depth on which states require it in order to protect lien rights. So make sure that you understand it fully and that you start to use it when it is necessary, but only when it is necessary. Some final pro tips, and this is what we put at the end of every webinar. Make sure you're sending preliminary notices at the start of every project. Use a platform like Levelset or something similar to exchange lien waivers electronically. So many subcontractors and general contractors would prefer that they receive the lien waivers electronically where it's appropriate. I know Texas and Florida have some issues, but you want to use electronic document exchange when you can. Use that notice of intent to lien 20 days prior to the lien deadline. And then when you are bumping up against potentially filing a lien, talk it out, try to resolve the issues. And if that fails, make sure you file the lien, because once the lien's filed, you can always go cancel the lien. But if you miss the lien deadline, then it could be fatal to your lien rights. And we know that that's key to making sure you get paid. With that, if you want to learn more, Levelset does have a solution that can help you navigate this entire process. We would love to work with you. Go to levelset.com/features. You can read all about the stuff that we do for suppliers and distributors. Request that we contact you. You can reach out to me directly, martin@levelset.com. Definitely want to hear from you and work with you. With that, any questions? I'm going to jump to the Q&A. So the question is, can we add specific customers that are lacking their payment terms? And how does this work in the process? Like after we put the invoice, do we let Levelset handle the digging on the status? So if you were, the question is specifically about, I think this is about the contractor pages. So if we don't know about the payment terms, but you just want to put the contractor in there, we recommend suggesting a contractor. If you have somebody that you want to see, you can email me directly and I'll do my best to get our team to fill in the information. It's not always like direct, where if you tell us, you know, we want ABC construction on the contractor profile, it's a guarantee that we're going to get normal payment terms, or it's a guarantee that we're going to understand their retainage. We usually crowdsource that from users, either Levelset subscribers or from people who are on the website who are volunteering that information. So we do collect that information from that group. We also collect it from the company themselves. We'll make phone calls if they're willing to share that with us. Another question, can we file the lien against the lien discharge bond? That's a specific legal question. I'd recommend, Irina, that we have the expert center, and I'll show you if you have like specific legal questions, we have a network of construction attorneys who can answer those questions. Full disclosure, I am not an attorney, and so I can't give legal advice or answer legal questions. But if you go to Levelset, ask a question up here on the top left, and you can see it's really easy. You can post a question anonymously, and a question like that one, Irina, is a great one to ask in our expert center. Another question says, what if they say it says the contract? It says in the contract, when we get paid, you get paid. This is a great question. So pay when paid or pay if paid clauses. That is a very sticky situation because it is contractual. Some states have different rules for what is allowed and what's not allowed. So the first thing I'd recommend is make sure you understand whether or not those clauses are legal in the state that you're working in. We have an entire pay when paid. One of the best things about Levelset is that you can just Google any term and click Levelset, and we've almost always got an article that we've written on it. So this is the one I'm looking for, Penny. Pay when paid help. We have a ton of articles on pay when paid. I don't know which one specifically answers the question that you're looking for, but protecting lien rights are still valid when you have a pay paid or pay when paid clause. It's important to understand what's allowed in the state that you're working in. Another question, can we put invoices for Levelset as a trial to see if we would like to continue the services? Absolutely. We can set you up, show you how to put invoices in the platform, send out a few payment reminders, show you what the platform looks like. So that stuff is totally available to you. Again, martin@levelset.com. You can reach out to me, or you can go into our website and just request a call, and you'll connect with a member of our sales team, and they'll walk you through how to preview that function. Another question, do we have lien rights if we haven't filed a preliminary notice? So again, can't give legal advice. I can't tell you whether or not you have lien rights. It usually depends on whether or not a preliminary notice is required in the state. Usually if a preliminary notice is required and a preliminary notice is not sent, or an NTO, I mean, they have a bunch of different names for these, but if a notice is required and the notice is not sent, that is usually fatal to the lien right for that particular project and for that contractor or supplier. So it's really, really important to understand whether or not your state requires preliminary notices. And you can do that by going to Levelset and going to our learning center. And we have it listed out by state. So we put it in layman's terms. It's free. Go and educate yourself on what is required in your state. That way you are knowledgeable and that you make sure your lien rights are protected. Thank you all for the time. Have a great day.